All right, y'all. So here we are going to talk about, we have two slides about the Westernization. We're going to focus on women's rights, and then we're going to focus on the general Westernization of culture that is going to be extraordinarily unpopular. So with this, one of the ways Peter the Great attempted to break the boyars' power was by granting women some rights. And one of the rights they were able to gain was the right to inherit land. So they're inheriting land. When they were able to inherit land, then that meant the boyars had to begin to divide land between all of the siblings. Maybe I'm overstating it, but we begin to see that weakening. So now Russian women become able, the ability, at least the boyars, the upper level. And then we begin to see one of the things Peter the Great realized when he was in Russia, he was embarrassed because the Russian envoy had no idea how to interact with women at parties. Before Peter the Great, Russian parties were only meetings of men. Women had their own thing. I have no idea what women did, but I do know the men they would drink their um, alcohol, vodka if they were on the poor side. I believe it was whiskey or bourbon on the wealthier side, and they would just kind of hang out. And and Peter would actually introduce cigars and things like that. But they would then talk about politics, and it was extremely genderized. So he said, "Heck no." We had when he went to England, he saw a party in which men and women danced, shared moments with, and hang out. He's like, "We're going to do that." So he actually forced all of the nobility to embrace these co-ed type of social gatherings. It sounds like it's great. Women must have loved it. I don't think immediately that went over well because the way they had defined gender in such a strict way, he understood it's going to take several years, if not decades, to fully embrace. But this is a step towards it. So Peter the Great was more focused on appearing Western, regardless of what the Russian women wanted. So this is really about consent. It's really about the idea of what Peter's going to enforce on the men and women. So yes, there is a little bit where women get some rights, but in general, it's more about Peter's appearance. Other forced cultural changes, and this is where I think Dr. Spivogo really focused the conversation on Westernization. The Westernization is the process that Peter wanted to make Russia more Western, more European. Well, one of the things he realized, it was the beard tax. He hated these long beards. From understand, it's part of the Orthodox tradition. The length of your beard is really about your holiness to a degree, and so these Russians would have these really long beards, and they were the leaders, the boyars of the church, and he's like, oh no, you don't. So he basically forced the nobles to shave, and if they didn't shave, he forced them to pay a beard tax, and that beard tax is where they're paying money just to have the right to own their beard, despite it being religious. The nobles try to resist. They didn't want to pay their tax, but they wanted to maintain their element. And then what happens is what we call beard burnings. And here's a political image, a broadside of the nobles getting their beards cut off. But think about it. The worst ones were going to be burned. Think about how dry a beard is. So when you light it on fire, it burns so rapidly, it's going to permanently scar the face. That's kind of what Peter the Great wanted. He wanted those nobles to realize, you mess with Peter, you're scarred for life. So again, this is all about looking Western. Additionally to the clothing, women had to wear necklines. That means a little bit of cleavage and other changes. So now all of a sudden, traditional Russian clothing. From what I understand, before this time period, Russian women actually wore veils, similar to Muslim women, or maybe even Muslim women. Is That's more of an, it's today we associate it with Islam, but it was really a Asian element. So women wore veils and masks and things like that. No longer could they do that. They need to show a little cleavage. They need to show their face. They need to be engaged. So again, it's very different. And then men were forced to wear what we call silk short coats. You and I have a short coat. This over here is basically a short coat. It's comes to your waist kind of thing. Before this time period, they wore traditional fur parkas because it's really cold. From understanding, these fur parkas went all the way to the ground, almost like tents, because of the intense cold. Well, now if the nobles want to participate in social gatherings and political events, they had to appear to be Western. So these forced cultural changes on the women and the men, they're really going to be temporary in some ways, because it's Peter's desires. But that's basically what Westernization is, according to Dr. Spivogel. I think Westernization is a little bit broader. It's not just the cultural changes, it's all of the economic, political, and military changes. So when we look at Westernization a little bit later, about if we're going to answer an SAQ report about it, each of those elements could be about the age of absolutism and Westernization. So we're going to pause here, and then we have one more video that will finish it up.